Among the dwindling numbers of sumo fans in the Heisei era, one man's golden hat shone like a beacon. His fan-waving antics and self-publicity drives may not have been wholly welcomed, but Naotoshi Yamada, aka Olympic Ojisan, devoted more time to Japan's national sport than most. In an era when the beggars at the sumo ticket office certainly couldn't be choosers. Yamada first saw light of day on April 16, 1926. His upcoming memorial service will take place on what would have been his 93rd birthday. He was born in Toyama Prefecture at a time when its two most famous sumo sons, Yokozuna Umegatani II and Tachiyama, were both still alive. Amazingly, he never got to see even another Toyama Ozeki in his long lifetime. But he was doubtless comforted by the heroics of Sekiwake Kotogaume in the 1980s, and more recently, Asanoyama. After graduating high school, he would leave Toyama behind to enroll on the architecture course at Nihon University, whose revered sumo club has produced one Yokozuna, one Ozeki, 4 Sekiwake, and 11 Komusubi, including Endo. There is no record of Yamada being heavily involved in it, though. After collecting his degree, he entered the wire rope trade before bravely setting up his own company, Naniwa Trading Group, at the age of just 24. Naniwa's broad range of business activities involves hotel and real estate management. You can find the exact details on their website. When the Olympics first came to Tokyo in 1964, Yamada was seemingly left spellbound and resolved to travel the world in search of that same Olympic high. He would visit every subsequent games within his lifetime, even finding the energy to make it to Rio de Janeiro, aged 90, in 2016. In his earlier years, he would wear a traditional Japanese hakama and wave his Hinomaru fan, seemingly a mix of the current and previous Japanese flag designs, in support of every Japanese athlete he came across. In later years, he commercialized himself, making sure to showcase his cartoony Olympic jackets and mock gold top hat, with Japanese flags emblazoned on various parts. And from the 1990s onwards, he would bring it all to the Kokugikan, frantically waving his fan against the movements of the foreign wrestlers as if hoping that the gust of wind generated would blow them out of the ring. But once he realized that these foreigners weren't going away, ever the businessman, he soon cozied up to them. There's been quite some debate about how Yamada forever managed to acquire a seat right in the center of the camera. He naturally claimed that he bought up a whole row of box seats, but some Kokugikan staff told me this was not so, and that he would merely play on his celebrity status to talk his way into those seats. Many spectators complained that his swirling fan obscured their view. Others bemoaned his insistence on handing out sheets of paper inscribed with a wrestler's name and instructing people to wave them at the cameras in unison. Others noted he seemed to be peddling memorabilia pertaining to himself. But I know many people appreciated his sumo knowledge and conversational verve, and that dozens of fans were keen to have their photo taken with him, most of the time not at his request. Far more than just an ardent self-publicist, he was a successful businessman who also received an Order of Merit for his donations to good causes. His efforts as Japan's chief Olympic cheerleader were also recognized by the International Olympic Committee, with IOC President Thomas Bach among those to pay tribute to him. Yamada was reportedly overjoyed at the prospect of witnessing a second Olympics in Tokyo in 2020. It is sad that he has died just 17 months before those games begin. Personally, I had the privilege of sharing one afternoon with him on day 11 of the September tournament 8 years ago. At the time, he was launching a drive to get more foreigners interested in sumo. In his terms, that meant randomly accosting them outside the kokugikan and asking if they would sit with him. On that day, I got the call. I hadn't yet bought my ticket, so I viewed his invitation as a blessing. Well, he'd end up asking me to pay a bit later, such was his way, but I was so pleased at being able to take so many photos from such close range, many of which I still use on this channel, that I gladly paid for the experience. It was a discounted fee, no cause for complaint. The thing I most remember, apart from our chat about Koroshogiku's Ozeki chances, is how sprightly he was for a man of 85 at the time, racing around the nearby seats to greet all who knew him. It was the first and last time our paths would properly cross. Carpe diem, as they say. The Sumo Association was never wholly comfortable with him, and have so far declined to issue any comment in response to his passing. From my point of view, he beat the sumo drum when millions of his compatriots gave up on the sport and buried heads in sand. In that context, I think his loyalty ought to be acknowledged.